I'm getting a lot of emails about my column on this past Sunday State Journal about the Steven Avery case when I said it's hard to believe he's not guilty. I believe he is guilty of murdering and raping and mutilating Teresa Halbach, and that his 16-year-old nephew, Brendan Dassey, is also a party to the crime. I had one former mortgage client, a female, email me and say, "Shame on you." But every other email was positive, including one friend of the victim and plenty of law enforcement and friends of law enforcement. For us to believe that Steven Avery is not guilty, we'd have to believe the police killed Teresa Halbach and burned her body, chopped up her bones, and dumped them on Steven Avery's burn pit in the property without anybody else knowing it, or that somebody else killed her. The cops didn't pursue the real killer, burned her body, chopped her bones, dumped them on Steven Avery's property with nobody else seeing it. Also the fact that Steven Avery's DNA was found in her RAV4, sweat and blood, and that her DNA was found on a bullet in Steven Avery's garage, and that Brendan Dassey's 4-hour confession matched a lot of the physical evidence, a lot of which was unsolicited by police. The documentary, Making a Murderer, ignored and omitted a lot of that confession. Also, the two cops that were implicated as planting evidence and setting up the Avery guilt, they were not respondents in the civil case because of Steven Avery's illegitimate rape conviction 18 years before. DNA did clear him, and there was a lawsuit by Steven Avery against Manitowoc County for $36 million, but the two cops in question who were accused of framing him in the documentary were not respondents. They were just witnesses. They would have suffered no financial loss. So what is their motive? Also the fact that Steven Avery, according to a receptionist at Teresa Halbach's place of employment, answered the door once on his property just in a towel when she came. He also called her 3 times the day she died and hit star 67 twice to block the call. I think there's too much evidence here. Also the fact that Avery's character, yes, he was convicted as a young man of burning a cat alive and of pleasuring himself in front of a female relative, and he ran her down with his car. Didn't hurt her, but he was convicted of that as well. Also, young Brendan Dassey said he was just reciting a fantasy from the novel Kiss the Girls, and that nothing really happened in reality. Well, that's a 466-page novel. He reads at a 4th grade level. Is he going to recall the entire novel that well in the confession? I don't think so. So what we're talking about here is not reasonable doubt. We're talking about unreasonable doubt. In my book, using common sense and watching the documentary and looking at the facts that were left out of the documentary, I'd say Brendan Dassey and Steven Avery are both guilty. Those are my 2 cents. My 2 minutes are brought to you by Edge Construction and Capital Consultants. Bill McCoshen, a lobbyist who worked for Tommy, who gets things done downtown. We could talk about this in the Iowa caucus results in the morning at 8 o'clock on 92.1 FM The Mic, The Mitch Henck Show. See you then.